We know that Russia is marching toward Kyiv, and the question now is how to stop Putin. Not once, not twice, but 3 times he's used the invader's hat trick and attacked a neighbor using the independence route as his rationale. I read an interesting observation from Admiral James Stavridis, who was the 16th Supreme Allied Commander at NATO. He quoted Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond novels. Fleming said, when someone shoots at you, the first time may be happenstance, the second time coincidence, but the third time is enemy action. The Admiral added, it is time to see Putin for what he is, a serial violator of national borders. Joining me on the morning show, Nancy Soderberg, former UN ambassador and director of the Public Service Leadership Program at UNF, joins us live from Kosovo. Good morning.
Good morning.
The Admiral talks about tearing up Putin's playbook and about the sanctions you and I have already discussed, like disconnection from SWIFT, which the EU says it's not ready to implement right now. He also thinks it's time to increase military aid to Ukraine. You?
Well, first of all, I have the utmost respect for Admiral Stavridis, who's from Jacksonville and is a pillar of our country and always has wise words to say. And of course, I'm a big James Bond fan. We have been arming the Ukrainian military, but it's still no match for the Russian military, which is massive and invading from 3 sides. So the challenge now is to increase the wall of sanctions against Putin, tighten it. I think we should do the SWIFT banking. I think we should cut off the gas supplies and tighten the strings around Putin's inner circle to make them feel this pain. The Ukrainian military is going to fight. The President Zelensky of Ukraine has said that they will see the front of their faces, not their backs. They've called up the reserves. Anyone over the age of a teenage boy is expected to stay and fight. I think women will join that fight as well. There've already been over 100 casualties. And there's massive attacks going on in Ukraine and other key military installations around the country. This is an all-out invasion seeking to overthrow a democratically elected independent government, and it must not stand.
President Zelensky said he's target number 1, his family target number 2. I mentioned the march to Kyiv is on. You look to history. Much as Charles de Gaulle continued to carry the flame of France during the Nazi occupation, is it time to prepare for a worst-case scenario such as the fall of Ukraine and Kyiv? Should Ukraine be afforded a similar opportunity? Is it time to protect President Zelensky?
Well, he has made it clear that he's planning to stay. Should he choose to leave, there will be many who would be willing to take him in pending his return to power. I believe that the West is going to stand by him as the sole authority of a democratic elected government in Ukraine. President Putin and the Russians are living in a fantasy world that they can just pretend that they're going to create a new country government next door, that they're going to declare parts of a sovereign country independent, as they've done in 2 regions in the western part of the country. And this is 2021. This cannot be allowed to stand. We are seeing the worst case scenario, Bruce. This is a full out invasion of a sovereign country seeking to overthrow the democratically elected government here. What the West can do about it, we're not going to put troops on the ground in Ukraine. We are reinforcing our troops along the border of Russia with our NATO allies, primarily Poland, which is right on the border here. We've already pulled out the Americans. There's a huge threat to the civil society on the ground. I was talking to someone yesterday with folks and relatives in the Ukraine, and apparently there's a hit list out that the Russians have put out for civil society leaders. Targeted killings are likely. This is absolutely the worst scenario that you could imagine. And there are going to be more casualties, and the West has to stand together as they are doing and make it clear to Putin that he will not get away with this, that he will pay an unprecedented price, as will his entire regime. He's not making rational calculations right now, so we just need to keep increasing the pressure until he feels the pain. This cannot stand.
Back to the Admiral. He said Putin is, playing a very tired game. His playbook is tired, but to the point, admitting this might be dangerous. Should the U.S. and the alliance be ready to go cyber to stop Putin? And is Putin in over his head?
I think Putin is in over his head. He is living in a fantasy world as if he's a czar in the 17th century that can create countries and dictate forms of government to his neighbors, and it's not going to work. He is lopped off pieces of two countries in both in Georgia, already done this in Ukraine, he's in Moldova. Taking tiny pieces of territory is not the same as trying to invade and control a country such as Ukraine. And he will not get away with it. He will pay a huge price. And in the long term, it's going to prove to be one of his last acts of disastrous behavior.
Nancy Soderberg, I know you have been extremely busy, so I appreciate you carving out a bit of your very busy day to spend some time with us. Thank you as always.
Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.